Germany is holding an international conference in Berlin to plan Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. Opening the meeting, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz reiterated his commitment to provide massive economic assistance to Kyiv. He said Russia's sustained drone attacks represent a new low point in its war.
The abhorrent way of warfare only demonstrates one thing: Putin's Russia is desperate. The proud and brave nation of Ukraine will prevail. To ensure that it does prevail, together with all our friends and partners, we will resolutely continue to support Ukraine, politically, financially, in terms of humanitarian assistance, and also with arms. For as long as it takes, for as long as that support is needed.
That was German Chancellor Olaf Scholz there. Well, meanwhile, the UN's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, says its inspectors have regularly visited two sites in Ukraine at the center of Russian claims that Kyiv is preparing a so-called dirty bomb, explosives laced with nuclear material. It says the inspectors will return in the coming days following a Ukrainian request. Russia has not offered any evidence for its allegations, which NATO dismisses. Well, let's speak now to our correspondent in Kyiv, Hugo Bachega. And Hugo, lots of news going around today, but let's focus on this dirty bomb. A lot of concern there in Ukraine about the use of language from the Russian side when it comes to this so-called dirty bomb.
Exactly, and the Ukrainians have been dismissing these allegations as absurd, as lies, and they say that Russia itself could be preparing to use a dirty bomb, which is a conventional bomb with radioactive material. And we saw that this accusation was first made by the Russian defense minister on Sunday. Then Russian officials repeated the same accusations without providing any evidence. And today, again, we heard the same accusations being made by the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. So Western countries have dismissed these allegations as false, but I think the fear here in Kyiv is that this could be a pretext for a false flag attack by the Russians. In other words, the Russians could carry out an attack using a dirty bomb and then try to blame the Ukrainians for this attack. And I think it is interesting to see that these allegations are coming as the Ukrainians are going ahead with this counteroffensive. They are taking back territory that's been under Russian occupation. And now all focus is on Kherson, which is one of the 4 regions that President Putin claims to have annexed. The Russians are there and the Ukrainians are making advances, taking back territory there in that part of the country. So I think the fear here, and it is the fear that's being voiced by some Western countries as well, is that Russia may use this dirty bomb allegation as a pretext for an escalation in this war.
Hugo, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. Well, let's speak now to Patrick Bury. He is from Chatham House and he joins us now. Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us here on the programme. We just want to better understand what a dirty bomb is. If you could just help our audiences understand that.
Good afternoon, Yelda. I'm actually from the University of Bath. But yeah, essentially, it's exactly like Hugo said. It's a conventional explosive which has fissile nuclear, material, radioactive material, should I say, attached to it, and the conventional explosion spreads the radioactive material over a wider area. And the actual effects of it are somewhat debated about how successful it is, but it's generally seen as something that could be, in a sort of military terms, useful in terms of denying an area. So if you were to detonate it around maybe an empty, let's talk about Ukrainian example, for example, an empty city or a half evacuated city like Kherson, it would then deny that space to the Ukrainian army who are trying to attack into it, make it much more difficult for them to advance. I think, as Hugo said as well, I'd agree that the idea of the Ukrainians detonating a dirty bomb is pretty absurd.
Yeah.
But anything to muddy the waters with the global audience.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen these sorts of things around false flag operations. I mean, essentially, that's how this war began, with the Russians pointing the finger of blame at the Ukrainians, saying that they were about to launch some kind of operation themselves.
Yes, this is what they always try to do, and it's not really aimed at anyone in the West, but it more about people in the global audience, and we're talking India, China, Brazil, etc. And if they can sow any kind of doubt and Like, that it's what, whataboutism. Oh, well, what about this? What about that? Disinformation, any kind of thing to muddy those waters and give them a greater freedom of action. I also think what's going on in this is, and I've been on before talking about how Russia is more likely to escalate up the strategic nuclear threat as things get more serious. And I think what we're seeing between not only the talk of the dirty bomb, but the talks between Defense Minister Shoigu and his US counterpart a couple of days ago, and then yesterday, I think it was, we had the chiefs of staff also in the US, UK, and France speaking to General Gerasimov in Russia. I think what you're starting to see is the early parts of moving up that escalatory ladder.
Okay, Patrick, we'll have to leave it there, but that's Patrick Bury from the University of Bath. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.